Hi everyone, my name is Veronika Galova Bolduc and I'm the head of marketing at ROEST. Today I will be talking to newly crowned World Brewers Cup Champion, Matt Winton. This is a live premiere, so you can ask questions in the comments below, and Matt is here with us to reply to you. I do apologize for our internet connection. Sometimes my reactions are too fast or too delayed, but I believe you will enjoy the content. So get cozy and let's start. Okay. Hi, Matt.
G'day, Veronica. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm glad to see you today.
Yeah, you too. It's super nice.
Congratulations once again on your achievement, winning the World Brewers Cup Champion. I mean, I'm so happy you find some time in your currently, I believe, busy schedule to have a talk with us at the Roost. And yeah, I'd like to talk about your winning routine and practice. And yeah, thank you
For
for joining me
sure.
today.
Oh, thank you
So,
very much
Matt,
for saying so. Cheers.
yeah, you know, me as a former world stage competitor, I truly admire your set of skills, which helps you to achieve this great success. I mean, you always make sure to give credit to your whole team, and there is a great value in that. But at the same time, you took responsibly all the roles one needs for competition. I mean, sure, you had help all along, but still, you sourced your coffee, you created the whole idea of blending for your routine. You, as a barista, or I mean, brewer, came up with the recipe for water, brewing, grinding, everything, and you even roasted your coffee, which isn't easy. So that's what I would love to talk to you about today. Roasting coffee for the world stage. So
For sure.
yeah, what is your previous knowledge of roasting coffee, Matt?
Firstly, thank you for saying and thanks for having me again. It's super nice to talk to you. My previous roasting experience probably boils more down to more production roasting. I was always roasting on larger roasters. But then I realized that for competition, I would need to get something that's a little bit more smaller in the volume in order to make the most out of the small amount of coffee that I actually had. Uh, as you know, when we're getting coffees for competition, it's not always the largest lots that we have. So it's kind of nice to have like maybe the ability to do a bit smaller batches size, like maybe around 100 grams is perfect, especially for Brewers Cup where we can actually make the most of it and still get a good amount of brews per roast. So my previous experience all came from, 5 kilos plus of roasting at a time, mostly on like gas roasters, basically. Not so much electric
Yeah.
roasters, but since working with you guys about almost 2 years ago, started to roast more on the electric roasters and had a lot of fun with it. It's been a hell of a journey.
Yeah. And I mean, in your opinion, why do you think sample roaster is a good option for roasting coffee for championship?
I mean, when we have like this small amount, like I said, you're able to just get so many bites at having a go of finding this sort of perfect curve because we're always looking for the perfect variables and, fix as many things as possible, but make them as good as possible. So not only did we have, try to find the best water, the best brewer, the best brewing method, all of these things were sort of perfected and fine tuned as much as possible, but we also do the same with the roasting. So once we have this amazing green product from the farmers that are doing such a good job, without them, we wouldn't have been able to brew coffee on stage. But all of their hard work goes into the next step, which is the roasting. Um, a machine like the ROEST for me, it brings out a lot of variables to play with. Like in terms of having the green product and then being able to give a roasted product and then unlock them further through the brewing. So it's not really as simple as going like, okay, we have the green and then we roast it the best we can or anything like this, but we're able to tweak and see, okay, cool, I need to push the development a little bit further here, a little bit less, bring out a bit more brightness, want a little bit more body. And with the roast, we're able to manipulate all of those factors. And furthermore, doing such a small batch size compared to, a big 20 kilo gas roaster or something, we were able to get so many more attempts at finding and fine tuning these small parameters. Like as soon as we got into Milan, we basically stripped down the entire brewing method and approach and everything, and we took each of the individual lots and coffees that we had and brewed them separately to see what was sitting where and what it gave to the cup, and really analyzed everything. It was crazy.
So you brought your roast with you to Milan.
Yes,
Nice.
yes, yeah. That was good fun. It went into the back of the car. It was Tom Ballerin and myself. We drove down, threw it in the back of his little Peugeot 206, tiny little thing. I don't know how we fit everything in there, but we did. The rest was definitely the most important and largest taking up in the back of that car. Everything else was just in like little boxes pushed into the side, but there was the big place there for the rest. It was good. But it was awesome. It was so easy
Oh, wow.
to take with, and then just set up in Milan at the training space that we were at. Just put the exhaust out the window, set it up again. And there it was also different voltages, like different power, not voltages, but like different, I had to adjust the power on my curves a little bit, but it ended up just, I did a couple of test runs and I saw that I needed to put the power percentage up a lot more than what I had in Zurich. So I did like 2 or 3 test roasts and then realized the power had to go up, and then found my new level that got me to the same total roast time as before. And away we go. Everything else was sweet and tasted super good.
Nice. Happy to hear. You're saying
Yeah.
that you're using power profiles on Roost. Why do you choose to work with power profiles instead of air temperature or bean temperature profiles?
I think coming from larger drum gas roasters where we had these variables of controlling your gas percentage, your airflow, some control RPM, but basically the way of thinking of like the energy going in terms of a percentage, which is similar to like a gas burner, and the airflow again in a
Hmm.
percentage or something like this, similar to the airflow in a drum roaster. It just meant that I could convert it in my head sort of 1 to 1. It was like, okay, cool. I
Yeah.
know that if I use more air at the start, it will give me this result. Less air at the start will give me this result. More power here, less power here. So I didn't need to overly think and come up with a whole new way of roasting just because I was on a different roaster. I think still the next thing that I want to keep on playing with is to approach more air temperature profiles and
Hmm.
see, and basically let the machine sort out the power for me. So, fix the air temperature curve of probably the exhaust temperature or bean temperature. It can do either, and just have a play with it and see. I've done a couple so far, and the repeatability is very, very solid. I got basically the same curve, but I just feel like I need to explore it a bit more. And then instead of thinking of applying energy at a certain point in the curve, thinking about the actual temperature plot and saying, okay, do I want 202 or do I want 203 degrees? And is it at 5 minutes or is it at 5 minutes, 10 seconds? Actually figuring out
Yeah.
the trace of the curve instead of the energy input.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say while we are recording this offline, it's right now premiere on YouTube, where right now you people who are watching this premiere, you can basically ask questions below, and Matt can answer it right now for you. And yeah, we can we can now continue talking while everyone's asking below, and you're gonna have fun answering all the questions for them. But let's get yeah, let's get back to my questions. Matt, you're roasting on the roost, yeah, like you said, for 2 years. What do you enjoy the most about roasting on the roost?
It's
Any
straightforward.
features?
Yeah, it's just so easy for me to make really
Yeah,
tasty coffee. Like I don't consider myself the best roaster in the world. I think there's plenty of other people out there who have much more experience and understanding than I do, but I'm still able to get a really good result out of it. I'm able to set it up basically wherever I am, exhaust out the window, plug it in. I've got the online connection to my laptop, and I can just roast. And I've got so many different types of coffee that I like to enjoy. So I've got everything from, mega fermenty, naturally processed experimental lots, all the way through classic clean coffees, some commodity coffee, some Robusta, some everything. And I just am able to roast everything how I want it. And after only maybe like 2 or 3 months of roasting on the machine, I could sort of understand everything. And, the learning curve was steep at the start, but then it's like you just keep on learning, but like just a little bit. It's very intuitive, especially because, you change the power and it's very similar to what I understood on the gas roaster. So it works. It works sort of like 1-to-1. I think the size is great, being 100 grams at sort of like an optimum batch size, in my opinion, that I've come to use. Because most of the samples I get are around 100 or 200 grams, so then there's no waste, which is great. And it just works. It works really well. I'm able to roast for like our cafe where we've just got filter serving on bar. I can just do 5-6 batches and then have enough to serve there for a week or two. So it's really, really handy. I love it. I think mostly also for sample roasting. Sample roasting is really great.
Yeah.
The repeatability and the speed. It's a lot faster than the other roasters that I would have roasted with.
I think your machine has a first crack detection. Do you use it, or how does it help you? Or
I
how do you
actually
use
don't
it,
have the first crack
actually?
detection. We spoke about it a few months ago, but we didn't end up getting
Okay.
around to it. But it's something that I think would be really, really handy. This idea of
Okay.
having a visual indicator of what is happening inside through the microphone is such a good idea. And it's such a clever metric because you get to really clearly see it. And sometimes when I am doing this sample roasting back to back to back to back, I walk away for a bit and sometimes it starts to crack and I have to run back in. But with the first crack detection, obviously, I could just let it do its thing and set, 5 cracks and that marks it or whatever it is. So it's definitely
Yeah, I'm
a
gonna
good
make
feature.
sure to fix that.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I'm gonna make sure you got it. Don't worry. Okay,
Absolutely.
back to your competition.
Sure.
I'm curious. I have a lot of questions after I saw your performance on
For
the
sure.
world stage. I mean, where to start? You used two very special coffees.
Mm.
You used Eugenioides. That's actually a new, maybe not new, but it's a different species, just like
Mm-hmm.
Arabica and Robusta. And then you
Mm-hmm.
used Katukai, which is actually partially, it's not even 100% Arabica, I would say. It's like a
No.
part Timor, a hybrid from
Mm-hmm.
what, Ikatu genetics. It's it's not, yeah, maybe
Yep.
30% Arabica, but how do you create profiles when it comes to this strange coffees that you don't come across so often?
Yeah. Surprisingly, both of those coffees roasted really easily. I think the
Oh,
Katukai it was more about the process and where it was grown in Ecuador at Hacienda La Florida. A friend of mine there, Fabrizio, he amazing job, and I was able to go and visit him and work with him, which was incredible. So I mean, the coffees that come from his farm, this like washed, high altitude, very, very dense coffee requires a certain way of roasting with a lot of energy, I found. And they come through quite quick, around 4 minutes 30, I found is a great time for these ones. And trying to push it as much energy through first crack to give me a really nice, expressive, vibrant flavor. And that was something that we did basically for the competition lot. We roasted the Katukai to have as much expressive acidity as possible. Like it was like, all right, forget body in that coffee, just go for all of the high notes. So then when we could roast the Katukai to have all of this top end of the brew, that left that rest of that space to be filled by the Eugenioides. We actually ended up using a few different roast profiles of Eugenioides to give different characters to the coffee, and some different lots of the Eugenioides as well. So it wasn't as straightforward as just having here is the Eugenioides and here is the Katukai, but by blending even different roast profiles, some that had more flavor intensity, some that had less flavor intensity, some that were more funky, made us have this really complex synergy in the cup in the end, and it was super interesting. But the Eugenioides through the roast ended up being mostly very fruity. Um, we didn't find that in some other roasters' expressions of the coffee, which is really interesting. So I guess that might also be the way that I roast, giving a lot of energy and then sort of letting it taper off quite quickly. And it was, yeah, surprisingly fruity from the Eugenioides. It was pretty cool. Very interesting to see even just the inherent taste differences roaster to roaster.
Do you think we're gonna see more Eugenioides coming to the world stages again and again? Is it something like a geisha trend, or what's your
I'm sure
opinion
it
on that?
will. I'm sure it will. I mean, when the top three in Barista use the Eugenioides, it kind of sets a precedent that it's good. And even if you don't like it, you sort of have to value it because it scored so highly. Me personally, I don't like the taste of Eugenioides particularly that much as a brew, but I think it's incredible to blend with. I think having a brew of just
Hmm.
Eugenioides is it's just not my cup of tea. I don't like it that much. But when I blend it with other coffees, it can just provide this amazing base that anything you add on top just shines. So it's really, really cool. And really almost any coffee works with it in a blend. It's kind of ridiculous. You take anything you want. It just makes it better. So I have a feeling that maybe even blending Eugenioides might be more of an idea, in my opinion, but that's just me. Uh,
Hmm.
I kind of hope it just ends up branching out to other species more. There was even in the Brewers Cup competition this year, there was Robusta that scored really highly. Like the Ecuadorian competitor had a natural anaerobic Robusta which scored 80 points in the open service. He did extremely well. And you know, his flavor notes were flavor notes that were sounded like a Robusta, but obviously extremely high quality and was rewarded heavily for it. So I think it seems to me, at least in my opinion, that the decision from the judging sort of side of things was that it was valued as
Hmm.
its own species. Like there's that saying in the, or not saying, there's that rule in the rules of the Brewers Cup and the barista competition where it takes into account the, you know, variety, origin, process, that sort of a thing. And it seems like they've taken into account the species as well, so that they've evaluated it as a species and how well it does for that species. It's a little bit harder if you haven't had another reference to it. If there's, you know, a very good Eugenioides and a very bad Eugenioides, then you can see, okay, this is worth rewarding and this isn't. But obviously the
Yeah.
work that Immaculata is doing, it's all incredible. But you end up being able to, I suppose, evaluate it for what it is, not evaluate it for how well it fits into the idea of what should be used in the competition. So I really like that, and I hope it explores other species too.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. Is like this year I felt like the rules changed, or maybe they did not change, but the judges became more open-minded because before we used to always try to fit into the scoring sheets to provide that cup that was required from us to win. But this year I admire that it was not about that much because they were more open-minded towards the different species, which I hope it
Yeah,
was like that. But at
I
least it
mean,
looked like that from me watching in
yeah,
online.
I think it was still to the score sheet. Like the competitors' cups that I tasted
Yeah,
that did very well were exceptional. They fit the score
yeah.
sheet. Like acidity body balance was huge ticks for me. Like the acidity of this blend ended up being incredible, even though the Eugenioides has no acidity. The other coffees brought it, and that was also through the water and the roasting and the brewing, and the body as well. The quality of the body in this coffee was extraordinary. The balance of that blend was also insane. So that was also the same with the other competitors that scored really highly. And I feel like even though some coffees that may have typically won in the past, they actually didn't have the same quality of acidity, body, and balance that some of these other ones did. So I don't think it was even that like it was like an open-minded thing. I think it was just that people found something better, which is even more impressive. All these coffees in the top six were ridiculously good. They were so tasty and maybe slightly different to what we have seen winning in the past. So it's cool. It's nice.
Yeah, I wish to try some of those coffees, but I heard that it's not easy to get the Eugenioides that much because it sounds like a very rare species, and
Very
not just
rare,
because of the
very
price, but
exclusive.
even because of the
Mm,
quantity, I guess.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I was a
So
very
it's
lucky
only for
boy.
the judges. Yeah. Lucky you. Nice.
Mm.
So, was it your best cup of coffee that you've ever had, the one that you brewed and won? Or do you remember some other coffee that you could say that was your best cup of? Just wondering.
Hmm. I don't know. It's so hard to think of
You
what
were?
the best cup of coffee. It was probably the best
Yeah.
cup of coffee I ever served. It was pretty exceptional,
Okay.
and all three of those cups on that finals day were just next level. Just the stars lined up, and they were just perfect. It was like a jasmine syrup in the end. It was just like so sweet and so floral, and we'd never had these notes before, like that strongly of jasmine. Yeah, yeah, it was probably the best cup of coffee ever served. At least a few judges
Okay.
thought so.
Nice.
So I guess.
You have to believe it.
Yeah, I guess I kind of do. People keep telling me it was pretty
So,
good, so it must have been.
nice. You sold it. So, uh, yeah, okay. You brewed the blend of Eugenioides and Katukai, which is actually it was a common theme. Yeah, other competitors did the same thing, which actually made me first time in my life believe that there might be good actually blend for filter coffees. I've never ever did that before, that I would drink a filter that was mixed of two coffees. And now, since you all kind of made me to rethink the whole idea and start to believe in it, I wonder where to start. How to even roast coffee for a blend? Where do you start? How you do that?
Yeah, I think just going quickly to the idea that we all had this same theme of roasting, not roasting, sorry, brewing with a blend. I think that in itself we need to take a second to look at that because that's incredible that none of us spoke to each
Yeah.
other about blending. No one did. Like I didn't speak to Ply, I didn't speak to Daiki, I didn't speak to who was someone else that blended? There was someone else. Oh, my brain's gone blank. Matteo from the UK, he also blended, and myself. Like we didn't have these.
Yeah.
There was no formula of like, oh hey, are you blending? Have you tried this? It was just like these things. Just it was like a common thread of an idea in the sort of coffee competition universe somehow. I don't know how, and then all of us sort of had our own individual expressions of it. I thought that was just incredible. Just to see what ended up coming out of this idea of, hey, let's blend for flavor. And I think that's awesome. It's so cool. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it is.
For me,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go on.
I um yeah, I forgot what I wanted to say.
I mean, for when I was looking at the blend, for me, I looked at how each part of the blend sort of fit in, and I thought about it a little bit like a musical way. Like we had
Hmm.
sort of the bass, which was like this heavy body sweetness, not too much acidity, or in Eugenioides' case, no acidity, and that provided sort of like the structure, the bones of the blend, and then we had whatever else was on top. So like essentially this you could sort of fill out the rest of the cup with the high notes, and that could be anything. And we chose the Katukai because it was so unique. On its own, it has like this strange sort of herbal taste, but very high quality. Like could be like verbena tea, it could be mint, it could be rosemary sometimes, lemongrass. It was really minty and had very light, bright flavors. But the acidities in that cup were next level, just sparkling and so vibrant and complex. It was awesome.
May I ask?
So yeah, talk to me.
I know that every time we prepare for the world stage, it gets to single bean that makes the difference. How it was there for you when you were creating that blend? I mean, was it actually counting bean by bean what how many beans will go in that one particular brew? Because heck,
Yeah.
that makes difference. So it was
Yeah.
bean by bean, or
So
like ground coffee was mixed, or how did you end up making
yeah.
actually properly blend into
So this is
50-50, 60-40?
exactly, yeah, this is exactly why I wanted to highlight the work of the team so much. It got to the point of about Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, maybe Friday, and with the competition open service starting on Monday, that there was just so much going on, and I had to give all like total control to Sam for doing the water and for doing the coffee. So he prepared 100% what was going on there. I just couldn't focus on all of the changes that were being made and focus on brewing and my routine and presentation. So Sam's job turned out to be basically he did all of the water building and he made sure the water was perfect. He took control of that. And he did the coffee. So he did the blending of each of the versions, each of the roasts, each of the lots of the coffees. And he ground it on the way he did and he mixed it the way he did. And he was saying like in the end he had this exact thing. He's like, yep, 4.1 of this one, 4.1 of this one, 4.2 of this, 8.2 of this. Like, he had this exact thing and then he ended up with
Yeah.
20.4 and then he took the little bit out and mixed it this way and he had his whole like system. In the end, we ground them on the same setting, not so much because we didn't think that we probably could have even squeezed another few percent out of it if we ground them at different settings, possibly. But we ended up just running out of time, and it was so tasty already. Like,
Yeah.
it was almost like we didn't even need to. But there was a sequence of like after we roasted, opening some bags and then closing them, opening for an hour, closing it, opening it 1 hour before, opening it 10 minutes before. Some we sort of blew the chaff off, some we didn't blow the chaff off. It was a real like step-by-step process, and I was so thankful for Tom for being able to Sam for being able to do that, and then Tom for taking care of everything else logistics-wise. It was, yeah, couldn't have done it without those guys.
It's always teamwork. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So, okay, let's go back to the original question. If I want to make myself a blend for filter coffee, and hey, I work with the green beans because I can roast it myself, but where do I start, Matt?
Yeah, I
How?
still think like how we did. We had this sort of like
Hmm.
base coffee. So you have the bones, the main structure.
Okay.
And I think in that one we didn't want to have too many prominent flavors. It needed to be something that was like had sweetness, it had body, it had like a richness to it, but maybe it doesn't have too much acidity, maybe it doesn't have too much character in itself,
Okay.
because it's very easy to clash characters. So
Okay.
in the build up to trying some of these, for example, trying Lorena and the Eugenioides, I thought that
Hmm.
might be interesting, but it just didn't work. They just sort of like clashed and it became very muddy. So you need to find sort of characters that complement each other and either like add on top or that, are so different that they don't touch each other and they're sort of separate. I don't think there's a formula for knowing what will work and what won't work. You basically
Hmm.
have to try it. But I was talking to Nicole Battlefield. She is from Germany, the German Brewers Cup
Yeah.
champion,
Yeah.
and she was saying that she would basically make these ad hoc blends. When she had a coffee that she thought was like not super amazing, she would blend it with like a carbonic maceration natural, these big, funky, boozy, hard-hitting coffees, and
Yeah.
just elevate it. So, just putting a few grams of that in to elevate the whole cup. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And something they do in Australia a lot is blending for flavor. And to be honest, that's probably where the idea originally came from for me. Seeing some of
Hmm.
the blends, the filter blends that Honor Coffee put out, they had a lot of like carbonic maceration coffees in a blend, and it kind of broke my mind. Like it was the same, like you thought, like, wait, you can blend for flavor and make it good. Like why are you taking two exceptional coffees and moving like blending them together? Like why? And I think once I tasted one of those, I was like, oh, okay, now I understand why. Like you can get this harmony throughout the whole sort of like high notes to low bass. Like you can that whole area can be filled with like an expression of flavor, and maybe acidity comes here, and then like there's this sweetness, and like it's just got these layers to it that don't exist otherwise. But I think it is definitely a lot of trial and error. I think mixing, for example, like a
Yeah.
washed Kenyan and a washed Ethiopian probably isn't going to be very nice, because you just got two high note coffees there. You've got the acidity and the florals and the acidity, and they're just sort of going to clash.
Yeah.
But like more easily would be like a beautiful natural Brazilian mixed with a honey processed Costa Rican with lots of vibrant light notes. So then you've got like these two here, and maybe they can sort of contrast and build on top of each other.
So you're saying that I would roast both of them separately to their best profile, let's say on Roost. So I would find the
Yes.
best profile for each of them, then try to brew them, figure out how they taste, if we can compare, and if we can combine. And when we can combine, then we are combining basically whole beans, or are we grinding and combining grinds? If you talk to me like a nerd, then
Yeah.
I guess it would be grinds.
I still don't think even. I think just put them together. The amount
Okay.
of times where I've had exceptional coffees, like blends, just made thrown together, just like, oh yeah, bit of that, bit of that, bit of that, and it's just ground at the same setting and just brewed. Or same with espresso shots, just like I mean, sometimes you can taste if one of them needs to be finer or coarser at that very high level of being able to taste that, and being like, oh yeah, I got a little bit of that under
Mm,
extracted acidity. Okay, that must be from that coffee. It needs to be finer or something like this. But I think overwhelmingly, it's not that much. It's more just throw it together, see what happens. I mean, for me, super
yeah.
surprisingly, with the Eugenioides, I had to use more Eugenioides to make the Katukai shine. Like, if I wanted the Katukai to be more expressive, I used more of the Eugenioides instead of more of the Katukai. So it was kind of backwards to what
Okay.
you would think, but that's what worked. And I guess the sweetness of the Eugenioides sort of got to carry the other flavors more. So it's not always as straightforward as you think. It's a bit more trial and error, and there was a lot of trial and a lot of error, but it was pretty cool. It was a good learning experience.
Yeah. Nice. So the best advice would be just to keep it simple, kind of. Yeah.
Just do it.
If you
See what happens. Who knows what's going to happen?
Um, this might be a bit away from roasting, but I, as a competitor, I'm kind of interested in this. When you find out your coffee, your profile, you brew it, you like it, why do you play so much with the water? If you already like the coffee that you tasted, what is there the purpose of the water to still kind of play around with the flavors or attributes going up and down? How important it is? Because here in Norway, we just take a tap water. It's actually really good. I don't have to filter anything, and I'm happy with it. But I'm wondering why, if we keep it simple, we go nuts about water for competition.
Water is everything. Like I said in the routine, it's 98.6% of this brew. Like we're at about 1.4 TDS, and it is so critical. And I mean, the water that we ended up making was delicious just to drink. If you haven't drank, like I'm sure you have, but like if the guys watching haven't drank individual different waters, like a tap water, a bottled water, a filtered water, do it, and you'll see that there's a huge difference, especially if you have bad tap water. But basically, the water itself can be huge in terms of the impact on not only the extraction but the taste of the water. The water itself can have, it can have some sulfuriness, it can have some saltiness, it can have some minerality. And in the end, the water that we had was just yummy. It had almost a creamy quality to it. It had almost like a sweetness to the water itself, and it finished just so crisp. And that's just tasting water. So then, on top of all of that, is the results from the extraction. And then we get into more of the chemical side of things, which we won't go into too much. But basically, we did 6 different waters. So I did brews of 3 every time. So it was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3,
Mhm.
and with different water in each brew. And the result was super interesting. And even though the differences in the minerals that we were using and concentration wasn't over the top, it was like like maybe 10% difference. Maybe it was like, I don't know, like 50 milligrams of magnesium in one and 10 in the other, and then 10 and 50, and like, swapped around, and just testing everything between different types of
Yeah.
magnesium, different types of calcium, different types of bicarb. And the base minerals that we ended up using, or the base water that we ended up using, was the Loredana water. It's a very low ppm water from Italy. It sits at around 14 ppm, something like this, super low. And we just tested it with the blend. So once we had the blend, it was like sort of the third thing to fix. We had the blend components, then we had the roasts that would go into that blend. We had the grind setting, then we did the water. And the difference was huge. It was either a delicious cup or a disgusting cup. Like, it was just on a dime. And then as we started to refine it, even the day of the competition, we brewed to get our flavor notes in the morning, and the water had died. It was flat. It was just dead, kaput. Couldn't use it. So we threw all of that one out. Sam was like emergency running around like a headless chicken, remaking water backstage, like taking his little, yep, cool, putting in however many grams of whatever he needed to do, and built the water again fresh, and it was delicious again. So even the water being, 24 hours old just didn't work. We had to remake it that morning.
Yeah.
It was really, really crazy, but it's night and day. There's no, yeah, you have to try it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That even
Cool.
helped me now to rethink it.
I think I'm going to be
Okay.
remaking some of my competition water like this week, just for fun. I just want to see if I can get that same
Just for
quality of the water out again. It's something nerdy coffee people do, apparently.
sure. Nice. Let's give some advices to other baristas who wants to go for competition maybe next year. I believe you're not going to the World Brewers Cup again, maybe
I
some
think I'll
other
take a
ones,
year
but
off.
if someone else, oh, nice. If someone else is going, I wonder what would be your best advice how to source a coffee, because that's, I think, when you have a coffee and you believe in it, then it's so easy to just jump into competition. At least for me, there was a starting point. But if you want to compete and you haven't met the coffee of your life, do you, how to do that?
Mm.
Mhm.
I think if it's your first competition ever, and if it's like you're an experienced competitor and you just haven't found the coffee yet, those are two different things. Because with the experience comes the
Mhm.
trust. And then also with the experience comes like this idea of you knowing what to do once you find it. So it's not a big stress to not find the coffee that you want to use to compete with. But if it's your first time, I think the best approach is still to find people that you trust, and particularly roasters that can help you. The roasters have access to a lot of coffees, and if you find the ones that do have access to those exceptional competition level coffees that are truly unique, reaching out to those roasteries and seeing what they have and tasting their stuff. At the start, I think having a totally sort of open mind to what you want to use, it means that you can just explore all the possibilities. You don't need to be locked into, I know I want a geisha from Panama that's a natural process. And then you've got like 10 coffees to choose from. But instead, same with the Eugenioides. I would hate to see someone go, oh, everyone competes with the Eugenioides, I have to compete with the Eugenioides. It's like, no, go find a banging coffee that you love. Just, you'll find the one that speaks to you as well, because it is a matter of sort of like falling in love with it, like you said. Like when you taste it and you taste it over and over again, you're like, yes, this is so good. And then when you go on stage, you also like believe in it. You yeah, you believe in the coffee. You're like, you can serve it with so much more authenticity when backstage you just had one of the best cups of your life, and you're just like, oh, I can't wait for you guys to try it now. As opposed to serving something that you don't think is necessarily the nicest thing in the world, and then you're like, oh yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Like it's a different thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the coffee is super important, but finding a roaster that you trust, reaching out to roasters who do have exceptional coffee, and finding a coffee through them. I think that would be the best bit of advice. once you're a bit more experienced and have those links to farmers, and that's where again the roast comes into play so much, is you can ask for directly farmers for samples of coffees or buy directly from a farm, and then you have access to these well-known farms. You say, oh, yep, cool, I saw, I think Immaculata in the finals of both Barista and Brewers Cup. They had a lot of really great coffees. I'll reach out to them, write them on Instagram, write them an email, and then you can buy coffees directly from the farm. And that's amazing. And then you can roast them at home even with the roast. That's basically how I did it. The people that were supporting me the most at the start was Project Origin, the green importer in Australia, and Finca Jansen, Finca Lecenda in Guatemala. I was getting coffees directly from these guys. In Ecuador, Finca Soledad, before I even met the guys at La Florida. And I was buying coffees directly and able to roast them myself and see, learn how the roaster works, but also see what was out there, see what I wanted to compete with, what was, lighting me up. And some of those coffees were absolutely insane, and they turned out to be sort of daily drinkers, but they weren't the ones that I wanted to take to competition, or they were so crazy that I could appreciate them once or twice, but again, I didn't want to compete with that. But that was also where this idea of blending came from, seeing what was out there and then seeing how I could, I really like this coffee, but what if it was a bit more like this one? And how can maybe I can blend those two? And, this is how it all started.
Oh, okay. And let's say you have a competitor that has some experience, for example, like me, and doesn't know that much about roasting, maybe even less than you. Is it a good idea to roast your own coffee?
I think still yes. I think even though
Okay.
there's a lot of other variables that you can look at, and you do have to look at,
Hmm.
the roast is another variable. And I think that, at least for me, like you said, for an experienced competitor, the level of control and I suppose the ease of use, like the ease of access to the roasted coffee is so much
Hmm.
better. You don't need to bother another roaster about it. You don't need to, have the coffee shipped from somewhere and freeze it. You can just, as you need it, as required, roast. And that's the key part, I think, as well. It does open up another box of like, oh, I have to look at all of these variables now as well. I don't have, I have to look at what development time I'm using, the end temperature, the total roast time, how many days off roast, how I'm storing it. Like there are a lot more things that it opens up, but if you can manage those, and also with the help of like the roast library, you can find the right profile or find a good enough profile and then tweak it for your coffee. It's not that hard at the end of the day, I don't think. There's plenty of people who are willing to share their profiles. I mean, we've got a couple up on the library. Is that right? I think.
Yes, I'm
So we
gonna
should,
attach them also here.
yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. So, finding the similar sort of curve and the way that I apply energy, you might have to go up or down in the percentage a little bit of the power. But apart from that, like, that's basically what I did. So
Hmm.
I don't think that, like, I'm not the best roaster, but there can't be that many more roasts of the same coffee that would be that much better or worse. Like if you're in the ballpark, I think it's sort of a good enough place. And especially if you have excellent green, then so long as the coffee doesn't have any sort of big negative qualities in terms of the roasting, so as long as it's not too roasty, so long as it's not dry, so long as it's not too short and sour, it's not hollow, it's got enough liveliness, then you're sitting in a pretty good place. And these sort of profiles that are on the library will take you there for sure.
Yeah. So basically, you think that without having too much of roasting knowledge, is roast easy to start with and create the way to get your roasted coffee for competition.
For sure. So long as you're happy to explore that door that's being opened, because it is a door that's being opened, and you need to you need to be ready to like, all right, we're going down that path now. Because if you're not ready for that, then maybe it's easier to get someone else to roast the coffee for you. But
Yeah.
so long as you're happy to explore roasting and buying green, then if you're at that point, then yeah, of course the roast is in my opinion, the easiest way to start roasting for competition in terms of the
Yeah.
variables that you have to play with and the ease of use and the resource knowledge out there and the quality output as well at the end of it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, Matt. I don't have that many more questions, but
Cool.
at the end, I have something like without thinking too much, I would like to answer you quickly some questions because
Cool.
we don't
I
have that
try
much
not to
time,
think
so you
too
will
much
have to make it
anyway, so it's
fast.
fine.
Yes, yes, just for fun. Okay,
Cool.
ready?
Go.
Okay. Do you prefer washed or natural?
Oh,
Without
my
thinking,
partner's
Matt.
gonna kill me natural.
Okay, you're my type of a person. Geisha or Eugenioides?
Geisha.
Drinking over roasted coffee or rather underdeveloped coffee, if
Uh,
you have to.
yeah, so this is because I'm like Swedish but under roasted for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more doable. Who is
Roastiness
your
kills me.
coffee hero? Mentor?
Who's my coffee hero? Sam. Sam Cora for sure. He's a beast.
Sam
He's a
Cora.
wizard.
Hi, hello to Australia. Yeah. And the last one. The best and the worst coffee you've ever had.
They're simultaneously the same coffee. So there's a little espresso
Oh
bar
wow.
in Milan, and they serve. I
Hmm.
don't know what they serve. It's called Cafe Napoli. It's quite close to the Duomo, and we went there first time when I went to visit the Fama factory, and they have like a lever machine. They don't really clean anything. It's not specialty coffee in the slightest, but they ask you if you want the cream, like cream and sugar in the espresso, and they have this bucket of like this
Okay.
brown, like syrupy, jelly, creamy stuff. And apparently there's like espresso and sugar and cream, and it's all mixed together a little bit like sweetened condensed milk, like that sort of a consistency. And they like pull the shot, and then they get a spoonful of the stuff, and they stick the spoon in there with it, and then that's your espresso, and it's like the most dark roast, like robusta, heavy thing, and you just sort of spend a couple of minutes stirring the cream and sugar stuff into it, and then you get this ridiculously thick syrup, and it's just disgustingly awesome. It's so good. I love it.
Okay.
It's like my guilty pleasure once a year. I'd be so
Oh
happy
wow.
to have that. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Simultaneously best and
I
worst.
will have to try that.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh
It's
my
like a
God.
good thing to keep you
Okay,
humble
Matt.
as well. It's like, all right, I don't need to stick to
Yeah.
this big acidity thing. That this is just like a normal thing normal people drink, and it's awesome.
That's awesome. Okay, Matt. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today,
You're very
for
welcome.
all your shared knowledge. I really enjoyed it. And at the end, I want to say that to all of you watching, that next year we are again planning to support 1 to 3 another baristas for the world stage, for the either World Brewers Cup or World Barista Championship. So happy to do that, and that we are also planning with Matt a bit more. We have a bigger plans that we will share when the new year comes, but I'm super excited because you, Matt, have a big heart, and that means that we're gonna share more love all over the world, all over the world. Excited for that. Thank you
Me
so
too.
much.
It's awesome. Thank you for allowing me the platform to do this sort of stuff, and thanks for spending your time interviewing me. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, have a lovely evening, Matt. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Ciao.